passes out when you say for you do the elections. Does anybody need a pen or pencil? All right. Mr. You're writing on the blank side, so I'm not giving you any. Hello.
Yes.
How are you?
Oh, good.
Wow.
A while, yes.
We're using them.
Okay.
That's the background now? No, that's where's your Zoom? Supposed to be there. No, but go down to your. Yeah, did you go to the actual Zoom meeting? In it? Oh, you got it. There you go. Usually it goes right back there. Hi, Alex.
Hi, friends.
Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you well, yeah.
Perfect. We have a couple minutes yet, and then we'll get started.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, I think we can get started. So welcome, everybody. It's the first meeting of the new Municipal Heritage Committee for 2023-2024. So excited to meet a lot of new faces, so welcome. I'll start off with the land acknowledgement. So I acknowledge with respect that we are in the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory, that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and known as the Boating. Boating is home to Garden River First Nation, Batchewana First Nation, and the historic Sault Ste. Marie Métis. So we're going to start with the welcome. So welcome everybody and introduction. So we'll do a little bit of a round table just so we can get to know everybody. So I'm Virginia McCullough. I'm the manager of recreation and culture. And heritage is one of the items that's part of my portfolio. And I'm looking forward to working with the committee this year.
My name is Tony Stryker. I work in the planning department. And I'm here to assist in the things.
I'm Kelly Marshall. I'm a former member of the board here and back on to start working again.
Hello, Jonathan Lalonde, ran for city council in Vegas, so now I'm on the committee. I studied community economic and social development at OU, and I worked at Miss Amelia Cree Business Corp on the Fair Trade Initiative, and I'm currently involved in a couple of heritage designations right now to do with the rail line is one, and also I'm looking into the railway station at Surgeon.
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Maranya. I am not originally from Sault Ste. Marie. I moved here about 5 years ago, and part of the reason I wanted to join, hoped that I would get appointed to the committee, was to learn a little bit more about Sault Ste. Marie's heritage, Sault Ste. Marie's history, and just try to participate as a good member as my civic duty, if you will. And I work for the MNR just down the way at Bondar. So thanks for having me. Hi, my name is Nicole Curry. I'm one of the carryovers from the Municipal Heritage Committee from last year. I also work at the Sault Ste. Marie Museum and South Bronco Fund.
Hi, I'm Salvatore Marchese. I studied planning down at Toronto Metropolitan University, took an interest in heritage at that time. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to expand my horizons, and I work at the Downtown Association.
Hi, I'm Joe Tobacco. I run the social media page with Sue. I lived in Toronto for 7 years after living here for about a good 20. Fell in love with the built heritage there, and when I moved back, I started to fall in love with what was here.
I'm Madison Dupa, the Deputy City Clerk. I'm not a member of the Heritage Committee, but happy to be here to talk about procedure bylaw today, and thanks for having me. Great.
I'm Victoria Reed. I work in community services with Virginia, and I'm here to take meeting minutes.
Okay, and first on my screen, I see Alex.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see all the new members on the committee. My name's Alex White. It's my second term on the Culture and Heritage Committee. It's really good to see familiar faces from the community. I'm really excited that Joe Bambaco is with us. Anybody who knows Joe knows his page Old Sioux. So that's really awesome. I'm here because I love local history passionately, the preservation side, and of course the history side. Thank you.
Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I am also a holdover from the last Municipal Heritage Committee. And previous to moving to the Sioux from Thunder Bay, I sat on the Heritage Advisory Committee for, I think, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. It was a while. And I'm not from Thunder Bay, but I'm from Southern Ontario. But I've lived in Northern Ontario for all of my adult life. So happy to be living in the Sioux, working at Algoma University. And I expect to live here for a long time. So thank you again for appointing me to the committee.
And Krista.
Hi all. So I'm Krista McCracken. I'm a resource to the committee, so not a voting member. I work at the Shingwalk Residential School Center housed at Algoma University, and I'm a public historian and archivist. It's nice to meet everyone.
Thanks, everybody. And also, I did want to, Councillor Caputo is our representative from council. She did want to send her regrets. She ended up having 2 different committee meetings scheduled at the same time. So she wanted to make sure that, everybody knew that she was excited to be on the committee and will be hopefully attending the next one. So we're actually going to change the agenda slightly. We're going to move the election of officers up onto the agenda. So we'll be amending it just so we can take care of that business up front. So agenda item 6.2 will be moving forward. So the procedure for election of officers is we're going to be taking nominations for a chair and a vice chairperson from the floor. If there's more than one individual that's nominated, then we'll be doing a round of votes. So that's why I handed out the paper, so you would be, showing who you're voting for if there's more than 2 individual or more than one individual that's been nominated for a particular position. Hello, you did it.
I just wanted to come and say hi. So hi, everyone. I'm Ange Caputo. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting someone. I can't stay, so I just wanted to come and say hello, and I'll leave.
So, yeah, so the papers are there. If for those that are, joining us through Zoom, if you're able to write down your vote if necessary and just hold it up so that we can see it. If there's only one person nominated, we'll do it via show. Okay. Process would be so, opening up the floor to nominations for the position of chair. Are there any nominations?
Who was the former chair from last year?
Jamie Van. Yes. And your vice chair the last go around. So Nicole was vice chair. And we just.
Your chair this year then. You're up for it?
Okay, so we have Nicole. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, Nicole can stand. So the resolution would be, well, yes, is there a second? Sorry, I was calling for that. Second, Jonathan. Okay, so Kelly was the mover and the seconder. So it'd be resolved that Nicole Curry, declared chairperson of the Municipal Heritage Committee for 2023. All in favor? If you do by show of hands. Sorry, I can't see the gallery. Oh, yeah. So anybody that's on Zoom, if you're okay to come on camera and record your vote. Oh, Alex. Oh, thanks, Sarah. All right, I think that, so that motion carries. I'm moving a seconder to open up nominations for the position of vice chair. And Nicole. And a seconder. Valator. So resolve the nominations of the vice chair. Are there any nominations?
Alex.
Alex. Okay, so Alex is nominated. Are there any other nominations? Any additional nominations? No, seeing none. Alex, do you stand? Yeah. Thumbs up. So is there a seconder for that motion? So resolve that Alex White was declared vice chairperson of the Municipal Heritage Committee for 2023. I saw Sarah recorded her vote. So everybody can show of hands. So all in favor, that motion carries. So I will turn the agenda then over to our chair, Nicole.
All right, so then we can move on to the adoption of the minutes. So if everyone has had a chance to go through them, if there's any questions, comments, concerns. Minutes of none. If we can have a mover to approve.
Yeah, and it would have to be somebody that was in attendance, so that narrows down individual. Move inside would be a motion. Sarah? Basically, Alex is there. And I don't see. Alex, are you there? Are you able to second?
Yep, I second.
Okay.
All right, and now is there a declaration of pecuniary interest? If you don't know what that is, I'm going to talk about it in a few minutes. You can declare it after you find out more. All right, and next is the adoption of the agenda, and this would be amendment of moving the election forward. If everyone's okay with the agenda, I have a mover. Perfect. And a seconder, Sarah. All right. And now can I have an all in favor? Okay, yeah. Okay, now moving on to the business arising. We have
the procedure bylaw presentation. I should probably share the screen, I think. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. While we're doing that, am I okay to make a little new business announcement? I've invited Virginia, so I don't know if anyone saw yet, the city of St. Green has started a new podcast. It's a municipal local government podcast that is talking about civic initiatives and getting community staff. And I invited Virginia to come and talk about municipal heritage for February with Municipal Heritage Week coming up at the end of February, and she's agreed to participate. So we're really excited to have her as a city representative to talk about municipal heritage, and I just thought, so keep tuned for February to listen to that conversation. It's a twofold podcast, talk about initiatives, but also to get to know city staff a little better as well. So it's we'll get to have a nice conversation with Virginia. So throw that out there. Said it. But now I'm meeting procedures. Thank you very much for having me. I just realized that we are February 1st. Oh my goodness, I'll have to change that. I apologize for the date. I don't know where January went. But Rachel didn't see our city clerk and I usually do this together, but Rachel is on holidays. So I'm going to fly solo for the first time. So if there's any questions that I can't answer tonight, certainly I'll get back to you once I discuss with Rachel. But certainly I'll do my best to get all of your questions answered as best. So boards and committees. So local boards and committees of council include advisory and other committees or boards whose members are appointed by council for an ongoing purpose. So like the Municipal Heritage Committee, what the process is you apply to be a participant, and you take all of the applications. There's a nominating task force that's in place to review all the applications, and then that task force makes recommendations to council. Council approves the nominations, and then we create the committee. So that's sort of how it went. If you didn't know that process after, where did my application go after I applied, right? So that's the process. They all get put into an agenda. It gets reviewed by a task force and recommended we make a recommendation to council for approval. There's lots of different boards and committees. Certainly Municipal Heritage is one of many. And there are also special committees appointed by council or the head of council at any time as deemed necessary. So there are other committees like ad hoc committees, there's other task force and things like that come out of the community, like out of city council and for different purposes. There's ad hoc committees or different task force. So some of them are long-standing and then some are for specific purposes. They might just be short. Like I'm thinking of the twin pad, for instance. This is something that will have an end date because once the twin pad is opened, then that committee will no longer have that purpose of that function, right? So yeah, governance versus management. So the governance board provides oversight and planning, so the big picture stuff. So for us, it's council, like I was saying, Salvatore has seen a part of this presentation in the past where downtown association is a little bit of still a committee, you consider a board and committee of council, but it has a little bit different language. But basically council provides that governance model, so the oversight, the big picture stuff. The operations are the responsibility of staff. Staff will bring all those operational plans, strategies, and budgets that align with the strategic plan to be approved by council. So we make recommendations, professional recommendations of staff to council. Council will deliberate and decide on the outcomes. The board in its advisory capacity makes recommendations for council's consideration or approval. So a lot of the time you'll see a staff report with a recommendation from this committee go to council for different things. So if there's a recommendation from this committee, it'll go through a staff report, be presented to council, and then it'll be deliberated and either approved or not at the council level. So it is an advisory capacity, and then there are subcommittees and working groups that may result from this committee, but they are still all subject to the procedure bylaw. There's a number of different pieces of legislation and documents that you will want to consider when sitting on a committee. If you haven't already received a copy of the city's procedure bylaw or the code of conduct, you can certainly forward those along to Virginia, or she might already have copies of them, and we'll circulate them. So the Municipal Act is over our governing legislation. Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, we'll get into a little bit, that defines what conflict of interest you might have. And the city's procedure bylaw is the primary
piece of what we're going to talk about today, and the code of conduct. So the code of conduct is something that we want everybody to take a read. It has certain elements in it that you'll want to take a look at. It is going under a review. So there's first off is a city review that we do occasionally just to keep things up to date if the legislation changes and making sure it's reflective of the current legislation. But also the provincial government has decided and launched I want to say 2 years ago now, they started a big review of the whole code of conduct process, and they're taking feedback. So certainly we're always a reflection of what the provincial legislation will be or the provincial guidelines will be, but also we have our internal our own elements that will be outlined in that. So we'll certainly get you a copy of it. The procedure bylaw, so it's bylaw 2022-100. We just went through a big update to it. We came back to council in 2022, and we constantly review it. So every 2 years, we'll do a midterm review of the procedure bylaw, or earlier if necessary, if things come up. But it's council's procedure bylaw applies to the calling and proceedings of meetings, council and all local boards and committees, and including subcommittees. So the definition of a committee means any advisory or other committee, subcommittee, or similar entity to which at least 50% of the members are also members of one or more councils or local boards. And local boards does not include the services board or the public library board. They have their own legislation that they fall under. So there are some local boards that are not included in this definition. But what happens is that because you're appointed by council as members, that's part of what makes it up. So if you have any council representation, there are like the task force, the number of staff that are on the task force is greater than 50%. So that's why it makes it a little bit outside of the scope of the procedure bylaw, but we still follow all the rules. So the definition of a meeting. The meeting means any regular, special, or other meeting of a council or local board or of a committee, either of them where a quorum of members is present. Members discuss or otherwise deal with any matter in a way that materially advances the business or decision of the council, local board, or committee. And we have this, so when quorum is present, this committee, if they decide to maybe have a function or you plan an event and you're all there, you have quorum. But as long as you're not materially advancing or talking about the business of the committee at that event, that's okay. But you would be improperly closed if you started talking about or materially advancing the business while you were at, say, some sort of municipal heritage event where you all would be there you have enough to make quorum for a meeting. This also applies to group email discussions. So group email discussions, you have all of your membership talking about something that's materially advancing. You don't want to do that. So make sure that you're not, responding to big group emails, because then you're also having improper meeting. So we say don't, do the group emails because they cannot meet the criteria for open meeting requirements, right? So the agendas are set by the chair in consultation with the staff resource. So now you've elected the chair, and your staff resource will bring things forward. We ask that the agendas are posted at least 24 hours in advance. A week is ideal, but including any attachments. So anything that's going to be discussed in open should be on the agenda so that the public can see all the materials, that they have the same access as you do to the open meeting materials. The business considered is in order set forth on the agenda. So you can change that like you did today. You kind of move things around depending on the chair and what the flow of the meeting is. And a member may ask that a motion is placed on the agenda provided they have a seconder. So if there's something you want to bring forward, you can bring those in advance. At a meeting though, any significant new topics should just be tabled and discussed at the following meeting. So you don't want to bring up something totally brand new that the public has not had an opportunity to review the materials or know that you're going to be talking about it, because if you all of a sudden start talking about something brand new that the public didn't get a chance to be like, oh, I was interested in that, I would have liked to observe that discussion. So just make sure you're sticking to the agenda. But if you want to talk about something at the next meeting, you can table it at this meeting and then you can add it to your next agenda. Does that make sense? Okay. We can move on to the next slide. So open meetings. Meetings shall be open to the public and no person shall be excluded therefrom except for improper conduct.
And that's looking down at the chair, so the chair is responsible for some of those responsibilities. And the notice of the meetings is published on the city's website. So our staff liaisons will take care of publishing it. We use an electronic agenda software. And all of the materials are populated through that. You can get access to the site if you see that fit, or you can have a PDF circulated ahead of time, but it will be posted on the city's website as well. And also that includes the minutes. So the minutes that are done up after the meeting. What I would suggest is for minutes though, when you're looking at minutes, that it's not necessarily a narrative of what happened at the meeting, but focus on the decisions of this committee. So you don't have to have Madison said this, Virginia said this, and go through the narrative, but just the committee decided this. And if there's action items, you can include the action items that Virginia is going to follow up. But just really focus on the outcomes and the decisions of the committee rather than the narrative that follows through. I sat on a committee as a board or committee liaison for many years, and the first time I took minutes, it was like and I wrote everything down and I circulated it, but that's not required. What we really want to focus on as a corporation is decisions and the outcomes of the committee, and those action items. So we want to make sure that it's very clear. With council, it's always just the decision points and those types of things, and the motions and what actually transpired in the decision points at the meeting. We do have the videos though. If people want to go and watch the video afterwards, they're welcome to. But the minutes of the meeting are the official record for those decision points. Public may record a video by video or audio, so you may have people come to your meeting and just want to observe, but they are allowed to record. And we've had it in the past where you have someone and they just place a recorder and they record the whole meeting, or you do have a live stream video now where all of the information is available for people to observe. And again, subcommittees are subject to all of these provisions as well. So when you have a subcommittee, you still need to say we're having the meeting, put the agenda on the website, and follow all of these things. Now the hard to read slide, but you will have a copy of this presentation. Oh, is there some chat? I see something in the chat. Sorry, I just want to make sure I'm not skipping over. Oh, Alex, I'll forward the podcast information to you afterwards. Sorry, I didn't want to skip that. I thought but yeah, we'll get that over to you. So the closed meeting, there are in section 239(2) of the Municipal Act, there are meetings that can be closed for certain specific situations. And these are listing here, A through K are the reasons why you can go into closed. Our recommendation from the clerk's office and in general is if it can be an open, it should. Like, we want to try to be as transparent as possible, but there are situations where you want to go closed. So, for example, if there was an announcement or information that was being provided by upper tier level of government, maybe for some funding or something like that, and it's supplied in confidence to the municipality, and you want to communicate that, like that's an example. Or perhaps often you'll see for city council the acquisition and disposition of land. So when you're talking about buying and selling property, sometimes we'll go into close or often we'll go into close for those matters because of the negotiations that kind of that can come out of that. Labor relations, litigation, and I think that one that probably would apply potentially to this committee is personal matters about identifiable individuals. So there are times where you're dealing with matters that are related to personal identifiable information, and Virginia can reach out to as well to us or our legal team to determine if that's eligible to go into close. We work together as staff to make sure that we're going into close properly. But my recommendation always is if you can go into open, so you can go into closed for training, but often we just say just do it in open so that everyone knows what's going on, right? So at the very bottom, it says this section of the act is permissive, not prescriptive, and the meeting may be closed for these reasons. So again, it doesn't have to be closed. It may be closed. But again, I'll just reiterate, if you can do it in open, that's what we would suggest. So again, the next slide. We just have to click on the screen. There we go, and try again. There we go. So again, education and training sessions, so a meeting of council, local boards or committee may be closed if the following conditions are both satisfied. If the meeting is held for the purpose of educating and training members, and at the meeting, no members discuss, otherwise deals with any matter in which the material advances the business. So get back to that. When you're in closed, you want to be on that topic. You don't want to start veering off onto other topics that don't qualify to be in closed. So that's when you can, you're improperly closed. You're talking about things that should be talked about in open. Or if you were talking about, say there was a funding announcement and you supplied that in confidence to the committee, but then you start talking about something else that doesn't, you need to come out of closed and go into open to discuss those matters that were on your open agenda. So just be really mindful that when you're in closed, to stick to the closed item that qualifies to be in a closed session. And Virginia and the chair can kind of manage that discussion. So if you see someone going off topic, just kind of bring it back in, right? Any questions on that? Nope. Okay. Electronic meetings. So something that I was heavily involved with. I started in the clerk's office in 2019 in September, right before COVID hit, and was part of the whole development of going to electronic meeting platform for. We originally were just doing it by telephone. I think at the very beginning we were live streaming through Shaw, like telephone calls. And it evolved, right? So we were trying to figure out ways to, still have meetings, still qualify, and still to meet the open meeting provisions that set out for our requirements. But it evolved over time. So we started out with these phone calls that were streamed, and then we moved into, utilizing an electronic meeting platform. And the Municipal Act did change to allow for virtual participants to act as part of quorum. So in the past, you could be virtual, but you wouldn't be part of quorum. So even if you were virtual, you couldn't vote on matters. But the Municipal Act changed through COVID to say no, virtual participants could. So we changed our procedure bylaw mirroring that, and the Municipal Act still states that. So we're keeping. I think it's a great way for people to be able to participate virtually. We do encourage everyone, when there's meetings, to come in person and participate if you can, but at the same time too, there are times when you're gonna be away, or maybe you're not feeling the best, you don't want to get anyone sick, or those types of situations where you might want to participate virtually. That option is there, and certainly take advantage of it as much as we can, and you can actually vote and it count as part of quorum. We do have we're live streaming right now to YouTube, and we have the meetings up there, and we think it's a great way to improve transparency for members of the public who may not be available to come and attend this meeting in person, or they could go back to the meeting and watch after to see what transpired. What I would suggest is when you're advertising on your agenda that it's in, what are we in the Biggings room? You're also live streamed. If your live stream goes down or fails for any reason, you can adjourn the meeting. Get your tech figured out. You can start up if it's only a couple of minutes and you can get it sorted. If not, you're adjourning the meeting and postponing until the rest of the agenda items to another time. The reason there's ombudsman's investigations that have happened in the past, not necessarily just to us, but across Ontario, where I think that particular outcome was with another municipality in Southern Ontario, where they had a committee meeting, the live stream went down, they continued the meeting, and they were found to be improperly closed. So we suggest stop the meeting, do a quick adjournment so you can get your tech figured out. If not, throw up on the website, technical issues, postpone until a future date or something along those lines, because you don't want to be talking about things that the public can't observe. Again, yes, so closed meeting investigations. The Municipal Act provides that a person may request an investigation by the provincial ombudsman as to whether the council or board met improperly in closed session. So again, that's all the things we're talking about. The ombudsman investigates, provides report recommendations if found to have met improperly in closed session. So early on in the pandemic, when we were doing electronic meetings, we did our best to provide the information, but there were a couple times where the YouTube link or the way to access the meeting wasn't right on the agenda. So we had an ombudsman investigation. We had recommendations. I just went to council the last couple of meetings to say, yes, you need to have that, say that YouTube link. It's embedded in our agendas now. You'll see it where the YouTube link is right there. We live stream everything to YouTube. So it's really clear how the public can observe the meeting and how the public can access that information. So, but if we didn't have the YouTube link on there, how will they know where to get it, right? So we just make sure that we embedded it, and we course corrected right after it happened. What we were doing too is supplying people who wanted to observe the meeting with the Zoom link and the password and all of that. But that wasn't sufficient enough. We needed to have something on the agenda. We're also very, we want to make sure that we keep the site secure as well from, say, the Zoom bombing and things like that. So we want to also make sure that the YouTube link actually works really well, where people can observe without having to access the meeting. So you don't have that same iPhone entered the waiting room. It's like it's iPhone, right? Like you don't know who it is, and then you're like messaging people in the waiting room, being like, "Who's this identifiers?" Like all of that was happening, and we were trying to bring people in, and we would call them or we'd message them to find out who they are. And it's like, "Oh, I'm so and so." It's like, "Oh, okay, we'll let you in," but it's hard because you don't want to end up in a situation where you have people who unwanted visitors into the meeting. So and I mean that in a it caused some Zoom bombing. So yeah, so there were some ways that we were able to mitigate course correct and make sure that everyone could observe the meeting while also still keeping those security levels intact, right? So that's what I was getting at. Yeah, we can. Sorry. Council must pass resolution as how it intends to address the report. So that came at the last meeting. So we had recommendations from the Ombudsman's office. We had already made improvements to our process to respond to those recommendations, and then we passed a resolution at the last meeting to finalize that portion of it. So the rules of conduct and debate. Oh, the one thing we'll go back just for 1 second. If you're having a closed meeting ahead of your open meeting, so what we found sometimes in council we'll have a closed meeting at 4 o'clock and open starts at 4:30. You still have to broadcast your closed motion. So if you're going into closed because of personal identifiable information, let's say at 4 o'clock and your open meeting is at 4:30, you still have to broadcast the reading of the motion and the approval of that ahead of the closed meeting. So, and you have to send out proper notice. You have to let people know that you're meeting in closed ahead of your meeting. A lot of the time, if you're doing it after your meeting, you'll read your closed motion during the open portion of the meeting and then go to closed afterwards. So just be mindful, because there was a ruling out of the Ombudsman's office that if you don't read that closed motion in open, it's a problem. So, but yeah, move on to. If you have any questions about that, like I can comment assist with that. We do that often with council, where we'll just live stream the meeting and then go into closed. So rules of conduct and debate, the chair presides. In boards and committees, the meetings are typically held in committee of the whole. So if you were at council, you would be like through you, chair to whoever, or you do the mayor to councilors, but we're kind of a bit more relaxed on the formalities in committees, so you don't necessarily have to follow all those strict kind of protocols. But at the same time, you want to make sure conduct and debate is part of all of that stuff, and make sure that all of the conduct is and we'll give you the code of conduct, what's proper and what's not acceptable. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory. You don't want people things are saying defamatory comments and things like that. The number of times a person is allowed to speak to, because there's specific rules in the procedure bylaw about questions being asked and how long people can speak. Those rules are relaxed, so you can kind of judge it. But if you're getting really off topic and the chair has the ability to kind of bring things back to the in line. So the conduct of members, a member shall not disobey the provisions of this bylaw or a decision of the chair on questions of order of practice or upon the interpretation of the rules of procedure. So certainly we have a little cheat sheet I'll pass along to Virginia as well. She might already have a copy of it for the rules of procedure in terms of motions and things like that. But again, it's a little bit more relaxed than formal council meetings. And I don't want to get too into the weeds on all the little things, but or breach parliamentary decorum. So that's you can judge that. Motions shall be in writing. The operative clause shall commence with the words resolve that and shall be moved and seconded. So we saw that with the chair being
that kind of, those resolutions, resolve that so-and-so will be the chair. A member who wishes to introduce a motion that's not on the agenda and is of substantive nature must introduce as notice of motion. That's what I was talking about at the beginning, where if it's not on the agenda right now, you can introduce to talk about it at the next meeting, but don't start talking about it at this meeting. You haven't given proper notice to discuss that topic. Finality of the vote. So subject to a motion to reconsider, a motion once decided may not be introduced for 12 months. A motion to reconsider must be moved by a member who voted with the prevailing side and seconded either by a member who voted with the prevailing side or a member who was absent. So if the committee decides on something, but wants to reconsider it, the prevailing side, so if everyone, you voted on something and a member who voted, say it was, how many members do you have? 10. So if it was like a 6, sorry, if it was a 6-5 vote, let's just use that as an example. If it was a 6-5 vote in favor of something, someone who voted in favor of it needs to bring forward a reconsideration. So, and the seconder can either be a member who voted with the prevailing side or a member who is absent. But a member who is absent can't do it. So, and this is to stop things from coming back over and over and over and over again. But there have been times in council where reconsiderations have been put forward, moved and seconded and carried, and then the topic was reintroduced, given maybe there was, you know, a variety of different reasons you might want to reconsider, but at the same time, it affects the committee, all the committee members to reconsider an item, right? So you want to make sure that it's done properly. So the relevance of the debate on all motions, discussion must be relevant to the subject under consideration. We've already talked about that. Quorum. So the mayor is an ex officio member of all committees, but not counted as part of quorum. So if the mayor saw an agenda and wanted to attend, probably attend, but not a voting member. No business shall be considered unless quorum is present. So you can have discussions and you can talk about things, but you can't make any decisions without the quorum of the meeting. Quorum is a majority of members and is lost during the meeting. And if it's lost during the meeting ends. So you no longer have a meeting when you don't have quorum. The only exception to that is if you're losing quorum due to a conflict. So say you had, I'm going to use 10 members as an example though, and you have 6 members, but one person has a conflict, so then you only have 5 members, you don't lose quorum because of the conflict. But it depends on your number. You got to look at the numbers, but you don't lose quorum because of the conflict, unless that is less than 2. So, you know how to. So, if you go to the next slide. So the secretary of the committee shall keep the minutes, record without note of comments. We talked about that, just the decision points and those action items. Provide notice of the meetings, post the meetings to the agenda and to the website, perform the clerical functions as required. The chair of the committee votes. I think there's a common misperception that the chair only votes in the event of a tie. That's not correct. The chair votes. If it's a recorded vote, there's no abstentions, so everyone votes. And with recorded votes, the chair or staff liaison would take note of how everyone voted and record that in the minutes. So that's what a recorded vote is, so that in the minutes they'll know who voted and how they voted, right? If you're absent, I mean, you're not here to vote, so you'll be just recorded as absent, but a tied vote is defeated. So if you have 10 members and it's a 5-5, it's defeated. So just be mindful of that as well.
Madison, do you want to just talk a little bit about when you might do a recorded vote? Because we don't always do recorded votes.
No, typically, typically in most situations, you would just, all in favor, and then you would record. If someone wants to call a recorded vote, you can say, I'd like this recorded. Sometimes it's, to have it on the record that you voted one way or another, so that you voted in a specific way to show that this is the way that you had voted. So a lot of the time it's just to make sure that the minutes reflect how that person had voted. But you typically in committee meetings, you wouldn't, in all the years I did the Green Committee, I don't know if we did any, maybe I'm wrong, I'd have to go back to the minutes to check, but they don't come up very regularly. Typically, it's just a all in favor, and if you have opposed, you would just record. If you had 10 members, you would record 6-5 carried, or 7-3 carried, or the other way around. So, but it's really, if it's something significant that you want to know how people voted, you're allowed to follow it. And it would be reflected in the minutes. We talked a little bit about the Ombudsman of Ontario. So there are closed meeting investigator unless another party is selected to act as such. But so when complaints go in and there's an investigation, it goes through their office. They can review complaints about administrative actions and decisions of the municipality, and cannot overturn decisions of elected officials or direct them on public policy. But they will give us recommendations on how to make improvements, like we've had in the past, where having that Zoom or having the YouTube link added right to the agenda was something we took very seriously and wanted to make sure we so there is a whole process on how to submit a complaint. The Integrity Commissioner is application of code of conduct. So members of council and the local boards, the code of conduct does apply. You can read it, and if there's an investigation, there's a whole in the code of conduct document. There's a whole outline of how that happened, how to make that happen. The application of conflicts of interest to members of council and local boards. Application of any procedures, rules, or policies governing ethical behavior. Requests from members for advice regarding obligations under code of conduct, procedures, policies, or municipal conflict of interest act, and provision of educational information regarding it. So often the times that I've heard of locally, to give an opinion on whether conflict of interest is such, right? There are other municipalities across Ontario. If you are following municipal politics at all, have different investigations. I watched one on the use of social media by members of council. These things come up, so there's a variety of different investigations, but certainly. So, but I'm just getting that there's a variety of different reasons for that. So the Municipal Act requires that a code of conduct be established for municipal councils, advisory committees, and local boards. It addresses gifts and benefits, confidentiality, and I'll specifically state that for closed meeting as well. Like there's confidentiality that you really want to take a read at, to look at. Use of board property, influence on staff, improper use of influence, and a complaints alleging violation are investigated by the Integrity Commissioner, and that process is outlined in the code of conduct document. Results of the inquiry are reported to both council and to the local board. The Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. So where a member has a pecuniary or financial interest, the act states pecuniary, but it's a financial interest, direct or indirect, in any matter, and is present at a meeting at which the matter is subject to consideration. The member shall, prior to the consideration of the matter, disclose the interest in the general nature. So I'll give you an example in a minute, but not to take part in the discussion or vote on any question in respect of the matter. In open, you can stay in the room. Often lots of people will leave, even if you're allowed to stay in the room in open. You just can't influence the vote or attempt to influence the vote or speak to the matter if you have a conflict. But in closed, you have to leave. So if you have a conflict of interest in a closed meeting, you have to leave the room. A lot of people will still leave it open, just to step right away from the matter. You write the disclosure, and we keep a registry of conflict of interest in the clerk's office, and shall not attempt in any way to influence the vote. And this interest extends to interest of family members. And there's so if there was a matter on the table to, I don't know exactly all the things that you guys deal with, but if you were to provide funding to a business you're involved with, that there might be a potential conflict of interest there. I'm just using it as an example, but or if it's your family, like if your family owns the business or something like that. I don't know what kind of conflicts you might have in this group. But.
Yeah, so the example might be we allocate heritage property grants. So if there's a grant application that came forth from a member and it's their parents' house, or maybe it's their house, they have to completely remove themselves from those places. Because we're actually potentially distributing money to the property for program. Yeah.
So it's that financial interest, and you don't want to be seen as influencing something that might benefit you or your family members, positively or negatively, right? Because it could. So if you have any questions about that, certainly reach out to Virginia or myself, and we can have that chat. But if you feel that there's a conflict, you can disclose that. And if there's conflicts that are outside of a financial interest, we leave that. It's up to the members to declare their conflicts. So I can't declare it for you, or I can't, tell you what your conflicts are. But certainly, it's up to the members to declare their own conflicts. But just think about if it feels. We have a slide. I think the next slide is. We talked about member must leave when absent, disclosure and record in the minutes. So in the minutes, when you have a conflict, you want to put it in the minutes. And we already talked about quorum. If you go to the next slide, though. Yeah, this is indirect and indirect pecuniary interest. If a shareholder, director, or senior officer of a corporation that does not offer its securities, this is straight from. But we'll talk about it in a second. Has control interest, or is a director or senior officer of a corporation, the member of a body that has a pecuniary interest in the matter, or the member is a partner of a person, is employment of a person or body that has a pecuniary interest in the matter. So that's again, it doesn't necessarily, it's not just directly to you, but indirectly. That's also would be considered a conflict. But we have one slide, I think, next that, yeah, so here's some of the questions to ask yourself. Do I have a financial interest in this decision, positive or negative? Does it directly affect my finances or those of my partner, spouse, or child? Is it indirect? Am I a shareholder or corporate officer or a member of a body, partner, or employee? If yes, and are not subject to exemptions, declare a conflict of writing. So if you ask yourself those, you can declare it and do not attempt to influence it. Some exceptions by reason of the member having a pecuniary interest, which is a general with a common to electors. So if everyone has the same conflict, you're not, you can still vote if everyone has the same conflict, right? By reason only of an interest of the member, which is so remote or insignificant in its nature that it can't reasonably be regarded as likely to influence the member. So there's like minor insignificant, like totally wouldn't be reasonably considered a conflict. So. And freedom of information protection to protect privacy of individuals, to provide for the disclosure of certain records upon request, best practice to release documents which are already publicly available, and communications regarding the business of the municipality are considered a record regardless of whether the device is personal or not. I say this, if we have an FOI request, documents, minutes and things like that are all publicly available so people can access those. But if you're discussing business on your personal or corporate phone, like it would, your city issued phone would only be like in Virginia in this room, but those records are still subject to FOI. So we want to make sure that we're being as transparent and accountable as possible, and that we disclose and, like I said, have as much information and transparent as possible. This is how we end it. The boards and committees are subordinate and accountable to city council. So when we, as a committee, you may want to do a public survey or get some input, and input's great. We would love, we love having the input from the members of the public. But statements that are critical of city council or members are inappropriate. So you don't want to start the survey out saying, we disagree with X decision made, but we want to get input, but we also want to make sure that we're being appropriate. So certainly the input that you're going to receive is always going to be positive, right? That's just, I can say that. But what we do want to make sure is that what you're putting out there is appropriate. So we've had experiences in the past where that's happened. That's why we put this in there. But we love getting input from members of the public, and Virginia has a lot of experience in that. It's quite good. So I would take her lead in there. But we certainly want to generate feedback from the public. We certainly want to take it in. It's not always going to be positive, but this committee is subordinate to council. So just to make sure that that's stated. I think there's maybe a chat. I just saw the little red. Oh. Great. So we have just a congratulations to the full-on chair and
Back in time.
yeah. So thanks for taking that. Sorry it took up so much time there. But I certainly will be available if there's any follow-up questions. I don't know if anyone has any questions. If you do, just let us know if you're Virginia. Sorry, I didn't derail your meeting.
No, thank you.
I'll get to it. Good luck. It's a great committee, and we're looking forward to having Virginia on Friday. So
I'm a little camera shy. So.
only one thing. Yeah, that'll be great. Okay, thanks everybody. Oh, you may want to stop. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so our next item of business is Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act. Yeah, so I included the prior to, in fact, in December, we had some additional information that we had on the agenda about Bill 23. The planning department had put together a report for council to give them an update because Bill 23 takes into, as you can see, there's several aspects of it that have impacts on parks, planning, but one of the impacts is on local heritage. So section 13 of the report covers off, gives a bit of a general overview of some of the changes that are being implemented. It took effect in January of this year to heritage in the community. So it kind of gives an overview of the change and then the impact. So one of the big changes is the Heritage Register. So we do have properties on the Heritage Register. The government now is saying if those properties that are there have to be designated within the 2-year window, or they fall off. If they fall off, they're not allowed to be put back on the register for a 5-year period. Unless in the case of a homeowner that's on that register came forward and said we'd like to be designated, then you could move forward with it, I believe, in that case, but it's not something that you can just add them back on once that 2-year time frame expires. So that's one of the major changes. The requirements become designated. So previously you had to meet one of the criteria. Now the number of criteria you have to meet to be designated and to be on the register have also increased. So that's another one of the major changes. And that he kind of goes through that in the overall report, but I just wanted to bring that forward to the committee to share and create some awareness with regards to those changes.
Question, when does the 2-year window begin?
January 1st, it began. So
Okay,
yeah,
so
so yeah, it took effect January 2023.
Here's report says effective date to be determined, so I'm not sure about that, but I can check.
Yeah, we've had a lot of the chat groups, so I think they're trying to figure out some of it. One of the chats, I thought they said January 1 was it started ticking, so it was rolled out quite quickly, the legislation, so yeah, it came pretty quick.
Seen anything regarding the criteria, like
It was the number of the criteria. So the criteria themselves that were in the Ontario Heritage Act stay the same. It's the number of criteria that it has to meet. Now, there were changes that had come out prior to what you had to include in the register and what you had to include with designations. So the type of information you have to have there, and then how you do your statement of significance when you do a designation report. Some of that's changed a little bit, but those changes were already happening. They were updating or toolkit, but this is the major change. Yeah, so it's going to be definitely a challenge with that one. Are there any other questions that I will say?
No other questions, no other concerns? And this question, more so the mechanics of that last statement, if this is okay to pass. The rules here. Hopefully the main impact is the 2-year limit to designate listed properties. Staff do not have the resources to embark on reviewing the register. putting forward appropriate properties for designation within this time frame. In terms of the impact of the timing, like, would we assume that properties or owners of those properties would take issue with the staff not having enough resources to do that?
The actual property owners?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how each of the individual property owners would feel. It's a designation can take a certain amount of time to get to do the whole report, the research and the history. So it does take a while to get them done. You know, there's definitely some of them that are on there that definitely score higher than others that, you know, we want to be taking a look at to see if, you know, the property owners want to move forward with designation and then do the resources. Trying to get, you know, some of them completed within the 2 years would definitely be a real challenge to be able to do that resource wise. But there's, you know, likely candidates on that list, and I'll bring the list forward to the committee that, you know, we're going to want to look at reaching out to the owners to see if they want to pursue the designation at that time. So yeah, so probably not all of them, but probably some.
I also recall that some of them are on there because the owner didn't want them designated. We put them on the list. Just to kind of protect them. Like I believe Bishopshurst is on there, and I believe that street on Cathcart and Brown Street is still on there.
Yeah.
Those are two owners that didn't want them designated, but we kind of put them on the list to kind of protect them still. But so it would,
Yeah.
it's too bad that they drop in after 2 years.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. It's a real challenge for some of the major municipalities where they have over 1,000. So there are municipalities, Ottawa, Toronto, have close to 1,000 properties each. So that's a real challenge for a lot of heritage planners across Ontario. Yeah, so like just a bit of an overview on that for everybody. Any other questions?
All right, so moving on to subcommittees and task force updates.
No, we don't have anything for this meeting at this time. One of the projects, just for information that we're starting to work on and going to be bringing additional information to the next meeting is in the cultural plan. It identifies looking at heritage trees. So that's one of the big projects that we'll be setting up a working group or task force to be part of to look at those trees. We do have quite an inventory, so that'll be coming forward in your probably at the March.
I do see a chat. Yeah. All right. So moving on to new business, we have Heritage Week, which is February 20th to 26th. There is sort of an overview of Heritage Week on the last page of the agenda. We sort of go over that. You want to add anything?
Yeah, I can. So different years we've done different initiatives. We have set up displays, usually at the library where we have a series of heritage panels that are put up. Old Stone House will be also setting up a display during that time. I know the museum often does something during Heritage Week as well. We have a proclamation that goes to council. So this, because it's Family Day weekend, it'll be going to the Tuesday meeting. So we'll be sharing the proclamation. I'm doing a podcast apparently, so that'll be part of that. But previously we had set up in the mall, but then COVID hit, so we hadn't been doing the mall display. So one of the things that I thought would be nice is if we did a series of kind of historical, like sharing about our heritage features and doing a different post every week through Heritage Week. I did email Joe last night, just to see, you know, there's a lot of great content on the old Sioux page. You know, it's a little bit different than our traditional stuff, but shares some of that history, right? So just wanted to put that out to the committee if that's something that you see that would be beneficial and what your thoughts were.
And we did do it virtually last year too. I think we had the videos.
Yeah, we can share those again as well. Any thoughts or suggestions? Don't want to put anybody on the spot. If you do have other suggestions, you can send them to me, because Heritage Week isn't too far away. And so if we came up quick this year, usually we have a little bit more time to plan. We started usually talking about it in December, but with the transition with the committees, it's a little bit later.
But if you want, we could approach the library, the old Storm House and the museum to look at putting up displays with them.
Yeah, I know Kathy, I think she was bringing it to historic sites for next week, so I know she's definitely ready for display. If the museum wants to put something up, that would be great. And so we can probably do both branches of the library. Along with the posts, and probably we could share the videos again that we did last year as well. So yeah, director and goal too. And if you have anything that comes up, you know, please feel free to email me.
And now moving on to item number 9, we have correspondence. So we have the heritage matters and the CHO.
So we used to get, so this is the CHO News publication. So I think, so this is a publication that used to come paper copy. They usually send one paper copy now, but I have the ability to sign up all the committee members. So past committee members, I believe, are receiving CHO News and Build Heritage News, which is through the National Trust, through their email. So before I wanted to make sure, get everybody's permission, if you wanted me to sign you up for the newsletters, it would be using the contact information you provided through the applications. And then that way it just comes out on a weekly basis. There's a couple of different ones that come through Build Heritage News as well. So if anybody has any objections to being signed up for the publications, let me know. There's actually some really interesting articles in there sometimes. So good resource, and you kind of see what's happening, not just in Ontario, but also with the National Trust across Canada.
So our next meeting will be March 1st at noon, either here in the meetings room, or you can do it in Zoom as well. And so that is it. Now, is there any other last questions, comments, concerns before we close?
I just have one question regarding procedure, and it's relative to the last meeting minutes. There are a couple items, I think it was like 6.2 in the last, or 4.1 and 4.2. So 4.2 is 54 Summit Avenue. That's really one of the designated on the inside. Is it more of a passive approach where whomever looks into it will come back to committee to report back? Or is there an expectation that they're reporting back in a certain period of time?
We'll be bringing that back on the next meeting. I knew we were pretty full, so the next meeting will have Summit on there. So Alex and I have been working on that designation, but I didn't think we would get a chance to get through everything today, just with the other presentations. So
Okay, and then the Heritage Award, since nobody was nominated because nobody applied.
yeah,
What happens? Is that just something that lives in perpetuity until the next one?
there's generally a call out each year.
Okay.
So we do it in the fall. So we did extend the deadline last fall, hoping to get one for, and then we usually award it during Heritage Week. City awards are being done a little bit differently. So Madison took a report to council. So we're going to be looking at doing one larger award presentation where all the awards are done together at the same time. So we're hoping that's going to draw more attention because we're doing a call out for various city boards, all at the same point. So
Thank you.
All right, so now on to adjournment. And I have a mover to adjourn the meeting. And a seconder. And all in favor. The meeting is adjourned.
all right, Steve, please have a sandwich. If Bye, Krista.